Hi guys, I haven't done this one in a while, but I wanted to go ahead and do a few stories that I found very interesting. And it's going to start with the Mesopotamia civilization. And this particular story is going to be about Enkidu and Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Okay, so here we go. He's the king in Uruk. Who knew? The king of the world. He slept and he awoke uprighting on a stone. He was made God and one-third man. He was wise and he brought tales of time way before the flood. You know, the major flood with Noah and the ark. So, this was before that time. And the gods gave him beauty. No one could withstand his arms. He was very strong. You made him, O Aru. Now create his equal. So the people were kind of upset with how he was acting. He would disrupt parties and get in between like relationships. And if someone was having a marriage, he wanted to be with that bride. He would disrupt that bridegroom process. So the gods decided to create him an equal. It's supposed to be just like him, have his own reflection, his second self. So, the same heart, a very stormy heart he was supposed to have, and let them be contented together and leave Uruk quiet. Because obviously there was a lot of disruption in Uruk with everything that was going on. So the goddess conceived an image in her mind, and it was of the stuff of Anu, of the firmament. So she dipped her hands in water and pinched off the clay. After, she let it fall into the wilderness, and the nobles, Inukudu, was created, the god of war, of Natura himself. So his body was rough. He had long hair like a woman's. His hair waved, and it was like the hair of Nesaba, the goddess of corn. So that's a description like how his hair looked. It was like corn, maybe corn rolls. Definitely. So his body covered with matted hair, like Samugan, who was the god of cattle. So he knew nothing of the cultivated land, and he was very innocent of mankind. The Enkudu, he ate grass, and he lived in the hills with the gazelles. And his family had lurked also with wild water holes, and he was filled with joy, and he was just like a creature man. So, he ran with the herds, so he was of wild game. Playing a game is one of the games he liked, and he entered a trapper's territory in a water hole. He started drinking the water. So, this story that I'm going to go into the next part is where they tie Beauty and the Beast to a man who was getting persuaded. Now, this man was in Inukidu, and he ate grass. So, he thinks Inukidu is immortal because he's like a human. From 1669 to 1627 BC, King Ashurbanipal, the relief structure dates this. Day 1, 2, and 3, he was a savage beast, and this is what happened during those days. So the trapper had a woman who was, it says she's a harlot, but I'm thinking she was more of a goddess, which would be able to actually persuade and tell dreams of other things. She possessed the knowledge to look into the internal of this man. So this woman was sent to trick this beast and gain his power, and took his power from him, sleeping with him, and she took him to the temple, showing him to Gilgamesh, and then they were actually in the temple, and it was in this temple, the ziggurat is where they were looking for different things and they were trying to get his attention. Um, and this is what happens. So he goes into the town. He starts galloping because that's how his feet were made. He sees Gilgamesh, but he tries to like drink, but he can't drink. He tries to eat, but he can't eat like normal people. So he's all like spasming out. He doesn't know what to do. So in Enkudu and Gilgamesh, in his dream, Gilgamesh's dream to his mother, his first dream of Ninsun, one of the wise gods, he was happy. The young heroes were around him and he walked under the stars. That night, under the firmament, one meteor of stuff of Anu fell from the heaven down, weighing so much he couldn't lift it, and the people of Uruk came to see it. The common people had jousted, but the nobles had castled at his feet and attracted like the love of a woman to Gilgamesh. The people helped move this stone by raising it with the tongs, and he brought it to his mother. So this is where his mother in the dream said, "This is your brother. Oh, gold spur," a strong symbolism of a comrade. He helps his friends in need and strong of wild creature and the strongest of the wildest creatures. So the stuff of Anu born into the grasslands and the wild hills reared him. And when you see him, mother, you will love him as a woman, and he will never forsake you. This is the meaning of that dream. So Gilgamesh's second dream is where he told his mother that the streets of Uruk had laid down an axe, and the shape was strange to him. So the people had thronged around and gathered around, and he saw it, and he was glad that he had been down, and it was just drawn to him. He loved it. This axe is like a woman to him who he wore by his side. And listen, his answer to the axe which you saw, which drew so powerfully like the love of a woman, the axe is the comrade whom I give to you, and he will come in the strength of like one host of heaven. He's brave, he's companion, he is a resourceful friend, and in necessary battles, he will help you. So Gilgamesh told his mother, "A friend counselor has come to me from Enlil, and now I shall befriend a councilman." So Gilgamesh told his dream to his mom, while the woman who was with the beast retold the dream to Enkidu, telling him, "When she looked at him, you have become like a god." So Nisan, Gilgamesh's mother, the axe in the second part of the dream with the companion was to be carried like a woman by his side. He found in the streets of Uruk. The axe is Enkidu. The harlot or the woman had laid down with him and made him a god. She took him to the people's places, and wearing rags from the harlot, from the woman, he was like her mate. So she took him to drink from a cup, and he only drank from like wild animals' udders, like a beast, like a man, which is what he was. So the woman said, "Drink the strong wine, for it is the custom of the land." The woman said, "Inugu, eat the bread, for it is the staff of life." This is a folklore, obviously. So he ate the bread till he was full, and he drank the strong wine in 7 total goblets. He became merry, and his heart had extended, his face had shone, and he rubbed down the matted hair of his body and anointed his whole self with oil. Induku became a man. But when he put on the man's clothing, he appeared like a bridegroom. So he was looking like his transformation, which was to be a bridegroom. And he took arms to hunt the lions so the shepherd could rest at night. He caught wolves and lions and herdsmen to lay down in peace. He became their watchman, the strong man who had no rivals at all. Then one day, after Induku's manhood, he saw a man. The woman got to come close in Uruk, and he looked like Gilgamesh, but a beast. They fought Gilgamesh, and by the mother Ninsens there, she sealed it into existence. Inside of the mountain of the gods, Enlil decreed the destiny of Gilgamesh, said his mother. So, in his dream, he said the meaning of this dream was the future of the gods, and they had given him kingship, his destiny. Everlasting life isn't upon his destiny because this, don't be sad, the power he is giving you to bind and for you to be loose, to be the darkness and the light of mankind. Unexamples precedent over the people. So the victory in the battle for which he had fought, do not abuse his power. Deal justly with your servants in the palace, and deal justly before Shamash. So the forest, the giant, Hamababa, lives by the cedar, and this is called the meaning of Huginis. Now, let's get to the rest of the third part of Gilgamesh's frightful dream. So the heavens roared, and the earth roared again. Daylight failed, and darkness fell. Lightning had flashed, fire blazed out, the crowds had lowered, and they rained death. Then this brightest fire had departed, and went out, all was turned to ashes. The falling about us, the falling about this had led them to go down from the mountain and try to talk to one of the beasts. So sadly, Gilgamesh and he went down from the mountain to think about what he was doing. So basically, he was up in the mountain. All of this stuff started happening, and then he was like, oh man, do I really want to go up here and conquer this part, or should I just come back down the mountain? So this is what he did. He's like, I want to think about it. And what he was doing as they went down the mountain, Gilgamesh, he sees the axe appear like magic in his hand, giving him the power of Inuku. He fell on the cedar and walking down the cedar, Hubaba, looking down at him from the noise, he woke him up. Away he was enraged, and he says, who is violating my woods and cutting down my cedar? But Shamash, the god, called to them out of the heaven, go forward and do not be afraid, Gilgamesh. But Gilgamesh got scared and he fell asleep. He just like passed out. So when Gilgamesh woke up, after he heard the echoes of the gods, they were screaming at him, Gilgamesh woke up and he put on his breastplate after he heard him. In the breastplate, the voice of the heroes, 30 shekels in weight. He slapped it on his body like it was a light garment. He covered up his whole body in garment. So he straddled the earth like a bull. He snuffs the ground, and his teeth were clenched. By the life of the mother, Nissen, who gave me birth, and by the life of my father divine, Lugio Banda, let me live to be the wonder of my mother, as when she nursed me on her lap. He said this twice to giant Humbaba, and this was the cause of the flood. So Induku, the faithful, the second son of Nissen, the axe of Gilgamesh, fighting the monster giant, his teeth like dragon fangs, form of a lion, his charge is like a rushing of the flood. His look crushes the trees of the forest and the reeds into the swamp. This is another part of Gilgamesh. He reigned 126 years. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the epic poem from Mesopotamia, Gilgamesh appears on the king's list, who may have been a living human being who was a king in the city of Uruk. So the name after Gilgamesh, Nunjao, is Nungao, is the son of Gilgamesh, who reigned only 30 years. So Gilgamesh's reign of 126 years, and his son, Nunjao, was only 30. So the region of Gilgamesh is the point of the mythical world where people worked and lived really long times, and that would definitely put it into that mythical period with his son who only reigned 30 years, and his name is Nungao, Gilgamesh's son. So that's the record that is on the king's list. And this begins after the flood in the region of Gilgamesh. So you have before the flood and you have after the flood. So on the tablets of Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh stone was believed to be a demigod, but was not immortal, just a powerful king. In Uruk, the man lived, and he was a sinner, and the people didn't like him. They prayed to the gods for an answer. Then came the gods' answer of intervention. Create a rival, a beast-like man who will rival the Gilgamites, using a piece of clay mixture, like I said before, and the man of clay became a hybrid animal with hair like wool and bull horns on his head. His name was Inukuru. He was a mythical protector of the wildlife, and then a woman, like the story in Beauty and the Beast from Disney, had fell in love with that beast instead of betraying the beast. So, the beast-like man from the forest, the goddess was sent to seduce him and work in secret for Gilgamesh, but she spent 7 days with him, dressing him up, drinking wine and bread like a human, and she started seeing a god in him. So then they were frightened about him breaking up the marriage of the two giants. This was called the 7-day battle. Then Gilgamesh finally won this battle and began a friendship with Inuku, framing the battle of the monster and the giant, Humubaba. They took his head and control of his forest of cedars, and this was not good because they were supposed to be coming back to help the people. The only thing that he did do was clear land all the way to the Euphrates River. So that happened in Mesopotamia. He's telling him that he will go back and the axe is secret, but not Gilgamesh. The son of Uruk, he goes into the cedar where the giant Humubaba lives, calls out to the glorious Shemesh, hear my prayers, and summon the great wind, the north wind, the whirlwind, the storm and the icy winds, the tempest and the sorcery wind. They came like dragons, like a sorcering fire, like a serpent that freezes the heart and destroying the flood and the light. So only lightning was present like a fork. The 8 winds that rose up against the giant, and the Humbaba against his eye, the heartbeat against his eyes had filled up with these storms, and he was gripped and unable to go forward or go back. So this giant shouted out, by the life of Ninsa, my mother, and the divine Lugumbada, my father, in the country of the living, in this land I have discovered your dwelling. My weak arms and my swollen small weapons are not going to help me defeat this lion. So, not going to help me defeat this giant. So I know how I will enter your house. 1 branches at a foot of the mansion. 7 times he did this till his layers of Humbaba was there. The giant speaks to surrender to Gilgamesh, and he grabbed his hands in the cedars, but the axe spoke, and they struck the giant. The fields were removed, burning the sword of the seven sacred talents. Wow. Then the sword reappeared, and they cleared the Euphrates. They took the head of Humbaba and Gilgamesh listened to the words of his companion, took the axe, and his hand drew the sword from the belt and struck. Humbaba fell. They cut his head off by both the axe and the sword. So one, two, third time, the giant finally fell, causing a lot of confusion at that time because they were at peace before that, and the giant actually surrendered to him. So, a guardian of the forest was struck down and killed, whom they had fell made him fall to the ground. For as far as two bishop fields, the cedars shriveled up, and Iduku the beast and looked like the bridegroom who had once walked the grazed with the gazelle in the wild. He had been cursed because he was supposed to be the keeper, the watchman of the forest, but actually betrayed a giant who was also a watcher of the forest. So he failed. He failed as a watcher of the forest, and the giant Humbaba, his voice of Hermon and Lebanon, used. They just trembled. The mountains moved, the hills all moved. The guardian of the forest and giant Humbaba was killed in the forest inside of his lairs by Gilgamesh in order of Inuku, who feared him. So they were both or all confused by why. Why did they attack the cedars and the seven splendors of Humbaba? They were all extinguished. Nothing was left. They went through the forest with the weapon, and this weapon was called the Sword of Eight Talents. They uncovered the sacred dwelling of the Inuku. So, while Gilgamesh fell the first trees of the forest, Inuku cleared the roots as far as the Euphrates River. And this is when it gets weird because the flood starts to happen. It's a ripple effect. And that's all because of this huge giant's head that was captivated by these two people. And it's basically a war of blaze. And empires start to form because of this. Empires, imperialism, and other states, and this is how everything got formed. So thank you for listening to this story about Gilgamesh and his famous adventures in Mesopotamia. Bye bye.